a fanatical minority can and seem to be able to take over a whole union.
I gave the order for British forces to take part in military action in Iraq.
Than have them grow up under communism and one day die no longer believing in God.
Hello there, and welcome to Labour Media. I just banged something. That's amazing. So we're off to a great start, as per. I don't really have like a much of a. I'm looking for like a through line for this one. Through line the right word? I don't know. Is through line the right word? I don't know. But the thing. Yeah, the thing. Exactly, that's it. The thing. I've wanted to do something like this for a while, and I think now is the perfect time to do it. I've been wanting to, on Broadcast Interruption, basically, just kind of, I hope that didn't bang too loud, kind of look at what I have been reading, and I want to kind of do some, use the time here to look at some theory, and spread some observations and some knowledge about it onto you lot. And my dog is getting very close. Okay, I think we're fine. I don't know that if the walking picked up. What was I thinking about? Oh, fuck. I need to not lose my train of thought. That'd be terrible. I've been doing it like 5 times already, probably. What was I thinking about? I just said it again. Okay. I'm focused. Focus is what I am. So I've got with me here today. I finished reading this very recently. I've moved on to Black Skin, White Masks by Franz Fanon, which is a very important work that I've been recommended. On a quite a different, tangentially related, because today what I have finished is it's taken me far too long to finish reading this whole thing. I am definitely going to. My dog might be scratching at the door, because I'm recording this in like a. You know what I mean. What was I thinking about? Fuck. Fuck. Alright, well, I was in the middle of something and I'm completely distracted. Yeah, so, I should have finished reading this a long time ago, because it's not too long, but I'm definitely going to make an actual, like, Labour Media video, just kind of what I did with, Lenin's, was the 3 sources, 3 component parts of Marxism. I did a video, like, kind of explaining that, and I also plan to make there's plenty of other good ones, particularly by like Marxist Paul. If I remember, I could leave that in the description. Actually, they've done like a lot of videos on imperialism and the theory in this book, Lenin's Imperialism: The High Stage of Capitalism. But yeah, there's certainly if I give a quick review, of course, it's by Lenin, so you know it's fucking amazing, because Lenin is a great author. I love his style. It's very informative. It's definitely I would highly recommend it for all sorts of. Well, of course, it tells you about imperialism. It's got some references to social-Chauvinism, what we would kind of perceive as like social democracy today, like that kind of outlook. Basically, there is some kind of insight to there. Anyone on the left should really read this, I think, and I think everyone should be on the left. So I think anyone should read this. It's also got some insights on monopoly, on banking, and colonialism in general. It is a great read, but it's not the easiest, because my one criticism would be there is a lot of it's important they have these like statistics, like kind of a lot of about capital investment, banking, about like kind of how firms have kind of become monopolies, cartels, trusts, syndicates, how all these things have fused together. But it can be a bit hard to pass. Like the first section is kind of like, firms have developed these big trusts, and I think, yeah, well, thanks, Lenin. I had no idea. I had no. This it would probably be much more revelatory for 1916 than it is now. That the idea that monopoly has become a fact, but it's very important as a foundation, and the preceding bits about banking, I think, are the kind of like first chapter is like not the most useful, but it's important. It's very important, certainly. So we're just gonna I think it's also important to bring this today because, of course, if you're in the UK, you'll know that it's. I'm probably a lot of other places in the world. You'll know it's. I don't know exactly how they do this elsewhere, but I know in the UK we have, or Britain, I should say. Remembrance Day, which is basically to commemorate the 11th of November when World War One ended, and it kind of extends to World War One, World War Two, and basically now that you've got like the poppy, because they died, and that's how, and then the soldiers died, and then poppies grew, and they all put in Flanders fields. It's basically, it's very interesting because this whole concept of Remembrance Day, we have like a 2-minute silence at 11 o'clock for all the dead, but it's become completely about remembering our dead, like our country's dead in war, and it's got nothing to do with anything about let's not have another war. Like, it's just, and it's sad all these soldiers died. Anyway, so where are we gonna have a war tomorrow? It's a very insidious day, I think, honestly. This kind of this, like, I mean, the thing about like World War Two, it does make more sense. Like dying to stop the Nazis. That's something to definitely be like that. That's like that you could say is like martyrdom, even if, like, of course, like Winston Churchill definitely didn't have any anti-fascist intention sending people off to fight Nazis, but the people who actually did did the fighting still had that impact. But like World War One, even, which is mainly what the day is about. It's like, remember our dead, they sacrificed everything in our country in a pointless imperialist war. And this book, it was of course written during World War One, which is very interesting. And it kind of talks about the situation of the competition between the competing imperialist interests of Germany and Great Britain. And I think something could mirror to say the interest of the US and NATO and that lot. Like that whole Western bloc against Russia today. We could say is kind of a similar parallel. But this is basically how kind of the tension that led to the World War I, as Lenin would already call it, the Imperialist War, came about. This war was these are the foundations of that war. And now, what's even more insidious about Remembrance Day? I'll talk more about something, but it's we're also it's extended to all British soldiers who have died, and I'm some of those probably World War One is kind of they're dying pointlessly. World War Two, yeah, okay, they're dying to stop fascism. I just got a Discord notification. I should probably keep that there, so okay, I'm smart. That'll stop it. What was I thinking about? Yeah, but outside of that, they have it coming. We're honouring the ones who went into fucking Ireland. We're honouring the ones who went into Iraq. We're honouring Afghanistan. No, they're fucking. They had it coming. They if they're invading, I do not particularly care. If they are getting their lights shot out, I could not give less of a shit, honestly. What a sacrifice for our country. What a blooming motherfucker. They're going to completely upend, level, and just destroy entire nations so a line can go up. Obviously some of these people like these soldiers are propagandists. They're taking in someone like their situations may have, of course, but that's cold comfort to the people who are getting their homes blown up. That's cold comfort to the people who are being invaded. So I can't see the value of remembrance for that. It's purely a jingoist, a purely chauvinist, patriotic sort of saying our people matter more than others. British people are more important than people from other countries. That is basically what it's saying. I'll probably talk more about it later, but let's get into some good old Vladdy Daddy. And I can't believe I just said that. Well, I can actually. So we're going to we're gonna kind of dart around a bit because I believe there is it here? Did I not pages where it's the definitions of imperialism, because that would have been smart. Okay, here it is. So let's start with some definitions of imperialism that Lenin writes here. These are from pretty late in the book. There's 10 chapters. This is chapter 7, Imperialism as a Special Stage of Capitalism. So let's read from the top actually. We must now try to sum up and put together what has been said above on the subject of imperialism. Imperialism emerged as the development and direct continuation of the fundamental attributes of capitalism in general, but capitalism only became capitalist imperialism at a definite and very high stage of its development, when certain of its fundamental attributes began to be transformed into their opposites, when the features of a period of transition from capitalism to a higher social and economic system began to take shape and reveal themselves all along the line. Economically, the main thing in this process is the substitution of capitalist monopolies for capitalist free competition. Free competition is the fundamental attribute of capitalism and of commodity production generally. Monopoly is the exact opposite of free competition, but we have seen the latter being transformed into monopoly before our very eyes, creating large-scale industry and eliminating small industry. Replacing large-scale industry by still larger-scale industry, finally leading to such a concentration of production and capital that monopoly has been and is the result cartels, syndicates and trusts, and merging with them the capital of a dozen or so banks, manipulating thousands of millions. At the same time, monopoly, which has grown out of free competition, does not abolish the latter, but exists over it and alongside of it, and thereby gives rise to a number of very acute intense antagonisms, frictions, and conflicts. Monopoly is the transition from capitalism to a higher system. So I was kind of talking about how the prerequisite for imperialism, capitalist imperialism, is the kind of we've got to have the development of kind of monopoly. So we see, let me just kind of explain how this works really. So of course, a monopoly in an industry, this that's not really the strictest way of talking about it, because this is because these basically big trusts, these big kind of companies that bought out other companies that have grown very big, have a big market share, and they have fused with other big companies, and they've formed an oligopoly. And with most oligopolies, they essentially function as kind of monopolies. For example, cable providers in the US, they carve out individual states, so where only one will go there and they won't compete. There's of course, there's collusion and all that. So yeah, basically, there's even like a diagram of this for like a German like electrical kind of oligopoly that basically turns like it's a functional monopoly. I don't know where the diagram is in this. It's basically just like how the like German electrical industry basically kind of came down to just two big firms, and then from then on they were like working in close collaboration. So like that's pretty obvious, right? We know about that. The interesting thing about here is also about how banking, the role banking plays, and how they play like a very big role in like basically like controlling these well, control is probably the wrong word, but maybe having like they have a big hand. They have a big hand. Big banking. Let me just grab a swig of this. Actually, I swear my thing keeps going down. Lovely jubbly. Right. Okay. So banking. Yeah, I was talking about. Essentially, what we have here, we have a similar process. Because banking, basically, like the start of capitalism, we have it basically be an intermediary. You have your money, which is inactive money capital, and you put that, and you basically get a loan, and you put that in the bank. The bank has that money, and basically, it basically serves to take all this money, all this inactive money capital, and turn that into more capital, so more people can get capital, get active capital, like means of production, stuff that makes more money, basically, and the banks basically make this easier to circulate. So they're like an intermediary, right? But now and then they of course, banks similar to these other firms, they form big monopolies, big oligopolies. So now we only have they're definitely one of the highest concentration oligopolies, just like internationally, banks. There's a very high free firm concentration ratio with banking. Very high, very high. Which free firm concentration ratio, that means like just free banks control like a very big market share of like just in general. And so the thing is, we basically have banks accelerating the process. First of all, we have them accelerating the process of the consolidation and centralization of capital with the regular firms. So basically, because they can just refuse to offer loans to smaller firms, so we have these crisis periods where basically, or like a bunch of small firms, they just fucking die, and big firms very easily can just buy them out, get bigger, and we see the banks subsequently, of course, grow bigger and bigger and bigger. If I can just find, there's a very important part of this. Here we go. So, kind of. Actually, I'll talk about this part first, before I get to like the part banks play in, because under imperialism, basically the export of commodities is kind of it's not really replaced, but it's like a newly it's, I think that's made like kind of more important than the export of commodities is the export of capital. It's kind of like the finance capital. I'll explain what that is in just a moment, but let me just another part of the definition of imperialism here. I'll just give this is like a general. This is like the process that Lenin writes out. 5 essential features of imperialism. Number 1, the concentration of production and capital developed to such a high stage that it created monopolies which play a decisive role in economic life. As I've said, that about monopolies become a fact. The merging of bank capital with industrial capital and the creation on the basis of this finance capital of a financial oligarchy. So yeah, that's basically the end result of these banks and firms going closer and closer and working together to grow each other. This level of collusion is the creation of finance capital, which I'll explain in a moment. Number 3, the export of capital, which has become extremely important as distinguished from the export of commodities. before the formation of international capitalist monopolies which share the world among themselves. 5. The territorial division of the whole world among the greatest capitalist powers is completed. So yeah. Basically what happens, like you could say like a shorthand kind of, like basically monopolies get so big, but they still need to keep making more and more profit because, you know, falling rates of profit. So they just begin like exporting to kind of as that, because of course they form a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. These big firms basically control the nation under capitalism. So that those nations, they start basically colonizing other nations, and with their existing colonies, they kind of begin implanting the kind of they start the kind of doing industry there, kind of moving factories and stuff there, and they move into factories there, which is accelerated by finance capital. Now it's like more easily deployed with mass capital being like being employed in all these colonies. So just massive monopolist profits being made with this massive exploitation of land and labor in these colonized, extremely poor regions. So this is like the imperial periphery, I should say. What was I thinking about? Finance capital, that was what I was thinking about. I need to train less. So what is finance capital? Lenin kind of quotes someone here, and then also kind of like says, "Oh, all right, mate, you got this wrong." So okay, so this is about a quote. It's from chapter 3, Finance, Capital, and Financial Oligarchy. A steadily increasing proportion of capital in industry, Hilferding writes, does not belong to the industrialists who employ it. They obtain the use of it only through the medium of banks, which, in relation to them, represent the owners of the capital. On the other hand, the bank is forced to keep an increasing share of its funds engaged in industry. Thus, to an increasing degree, the bank is being transformed into an industrial capitalist. This bank capital, i.e. capital in money form, which is thus really transformed into industrial capital, I call finance capital. Finance capital is capital controlled by banks and employed by industrialists. This definition, this is Lenin speaking now. This definition is incomplete insofar as it is silent on one extremely important fact: the increase of concentration of production and of capital to such an extent that it leads and has led to monopoly. Make sure it doesn't turn off. I'll keep reading this. But throughout the whole of his work, and particularly in the 2 chapters which precede the one from which the definition is taken, Hilferding stresses the part played by capitalist monopolies. The concentration of production, the monopoly arising therefrom, the merging or coalescence of banking with industry. This is the history of the rise of the rise of finance capital, and what gives the term finance capital its content. So yeah, we've kind of got banking and industry and banking and other firms merging, and basically this capital comes from the banks. They need the banks to get the capital, and so basically the capital is kind of it's owned by the banks, employed by industrialists, and because of this merger, because of monopolist profits, because of massive banks, massive corporations, we've got massive amounts of capital being exported. And this need to basically kind of export capital elsewhere, and this need to kind of colonize the world for higher and higher profits. This is mentioned later in the book, but imperialism is basically where we have the entire world is partitioned between a small handful of powers. So think about that. This kind of So the financial oligarchy of each nation, these big monopolists that control like a small handful of people and a small handful of firms that basically control everything. We now have that on a larger scale. We basically have these few great powers. Like we have basically today we would consider this to be like the United States, We have, it's basically like the G7 countries, really, like the EU, like Canada, Australia, Japan. These big imperialist countries, they all form a bloc. Then you have like big blocks, so say like Russia. They've basically divided. All the world is now partitioned. There's no like world that hasn't been like claimed by a big power. It's all partitioned amongst these big powers. Like basically the whole world has been colonized under imperialism. So that's kind of that there. Now, so that's basic. So yeah, so a quick rundown. Imperialism, we have free competition, that leads to monopolies. I think I didn't explain properly how that happens. You've got this kind of situation where, like, basically, one firm will kind of improve technology, like improve their capital, increase capital, etc. And they will basically make higher profits for a time, and then everyone else will be like, hey, I want some of what that guy's got. And then everyone else will start doing the same thing, and that basically brings the rate of profit down to where it was, and prices become lower. This like process repeats with the rate of profit falling, continuing back to where it was, until eventually, there's an economic crisis. It's a crash. That's like the trade cycle that happens like every couple of years. We have this crash, and there are like firms that go out of business and firms that survive. And so this will basically always be leading to firms, some like bigger firms that can buy out smaller firms, and then they like kind of coalesce, and they like grow into bigger and bigger trusts, and this process repeats, and like they can do it easier with like the growth of banking, with the kind of like this economy of scale, the things that these bigger firms have access to. And they just keep growing and growing. Capital keeps centralizing until we have oligopolies, and those oligopolies start colluding, or they could even start buying each other out, and that leads to basically cartels. So we've got trusts, cartels, syndicates. Like the way word syndicate is used here is not the same as like the trade union type syndicate, which would be under syndicalism, by the way. It's a different type of like this. It's like a monopoly, basically, like a trust. So these monopolies, trusts, cartels, syndicates, all these things, that basically becomes all these like in industry and in banking, they kind of like come together. They control their own nation, and then these nations basically they have to start exporting. They have to start going elsewhere for profit. So this will lead to the whole world partitioning. And basically, then there is basically a period of everyone wants what everyone else has. So that's where like wars come in, wars for like taking over new territory, taking like repetitioning, making new petitions, like redividing where lines are, and increasing exploitation. So yeah. That is basically you go from like a monopoly on home industry to a monopoly over the world, basically. So that is basically imperialism, the monopoly stage of capitalism. So yes, but we're not done. Well, we won't be done. It's only been like 30 odd minutes. Because Lenin has a lot of very good observations in this book, particularly about, I think, all the social democrats, and I think this book's also very important for understanding like the idea of like social fascism. This kind of idea that the like basically the non-socialist ideologies, which I guess you could kind of call kind of stem from liberalism. So of course, got like liberalism proper. You have like social liberalism, which I guess is just a real version of liberalism, neoliberalism, I guess you could all call this neoliberal these days. Conservatism, social democracy, fascism. Oh, they're all made out kind of like a similar stuff. So let's kind of look at the. Oh dear! Oh my! Let me know. There is a very important quote here. Was it there? I'm trying to find the quote. I'm trying to. Oh, there's that diagram. There is groups in German electrical industry that I was talking about earlier. We got like a bunch of firms, and there's less, and there's less, and there's only two, and then they've been in close cooperation since 1908. AEG. I could stop flipping over the pages I've bookmarked. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Okay. So this is, I think this is very interesting. I'm going to kind of, and there's some more about in this as well, other points. So let me explain. Some very important observations on like some stuff in Britain at the time. It is not without interest to observe that even at the time these leading British bourgeois politicians fully appreciated the connection between what might be called the purely economic and the politico-social roots of modern imperialism. Chamberlain advocated imperialism by calling it a true, wise and economical policy, and he pointed particularly to the German, American and Belgian competition which Great Britain was encountering in the world market. Salvation lies in monopolies, and the capitalists as they formed cartels, syndicates and trusts. Salvation lies in monopolies, echoed the political leaders of the bourgeoisie, hastening to appropriate the parts of the world not yet shared out. The journalist, Stead, relates the following remarks uttered by his close friend Cecil Rhodes in 1895 regarding his imperialist ideas. So this is a quote from Cecil Rhodes now. I was in the East End of London yesterday and attended a meeting of the unemployed. I listened to the wild speeches which were just a cry for bread, bread, bread. And on my way home I pondered over the scene and I became more than ever convinced of the importance of imperialism. My cherished idea is a solution for the social problem, i.e., in order to save the 40 million inhabitants of the United Kingdom from a bloody civil war, we colonial statesmen must acquire new lands to settle the surplus population, to provide new markets for the goods produced by them in the factories and mines. The empire, as I've always said, is a bread and butter question. If you want to avoid civil war, you must become imperialists. And of course, back to Lenin now. This is what Cecil Rhodes, millionaire, king of finance, and I did nicely press something. No, start again. This is what Cecil Rhodes, millionaire, king of finance, the man who was mainly responsible for the Boer War, said in 1895. His defence of imperialism is just crude and cynical, but in substance it does not differ from the theory advocated by Messrs. Maslov, I apologize for butchering these names, Potrasov, David, and the founder of Russian Marxism and others. Cecil Rhodes was a somewhat more honest social chauvinist. Now, if you've read State and Revolution, which I can only recommend, fantastic book that is. Very foundational. Less universally so than this one, but also it's just you should really read State and Revolution. What's important here is basically so social chauvinists in that book, they're basically kind of like Kautsky and this lot, kind of like social democrats, what we'd call social democrats today. They want to meet the proletariat halfway. They want socialism via achieving a majority in parliament. They don't want to create a dictatorship of the proletariat, basically, and essentially they want to just divide the spoils of capitalism more evenly, and that's basically what this here is saying. This is the this Cecil Rhodes guy, this massive imperialist, is basically saying what is the fundamentals of social democracy. All right, it is solving the issue of hunger and civil unrest in the wealthy countries by basically with colonies, by getting money from the colonies to feed them, and that's basically the fundamental. That's how social democracy works. That's how the neo-colonial era even work. It's the basis behind colonial taxes, unequal exchange, all this exploitation abroad. That's how that is social democracy. That is what happens when you want to try and have these reforms, but you don't want socialism. You still you want to have your cake and eat it too. You want to keep capitalism around, but you want to you want to meet the proletariat halfway. You want to kind of, my dog's scratching the door again. You want to kind of like appease them, basically. So Lenin kind of talks about this more later, how imperialism kind of solidifies opportunism. Opportunists, of course, being the same social chauvinists. He's saying, as we call them, social democrats. And this opportunism is kind of solidified by imperialism, because imperialism, of course, that money, these monopoly products, they are, of course, basically the exploitation is being exported elsewhere, and it's kind of satiating the upper strata of the proletariat, as Lenin says. Oh, blimey. Now, it's kind of this corrupting of the upper strata of the proletariat, this creation of labour aristocracy. It's kind of Lenin quotes some very good quotes from Engels in this. Here it is. It's a quote from Engels here. I've already read this out on my socialist patriotism video. The English proletariat is becoming more and more bourgeois, so that this most bourgeois of all nations is apparently aiming ultimately at the possession of a bourgeois aristocracy and the bourgeois proletariat, as well as the bourgeoisie. For a nation which exploits the whole world, this is, of course, to a certain extent justifiable. And then, this is Lenin speaking, almost a quarter of a century later, in a letter dated August 11th, August 11th, 1881, Engels speaks of the worst type of English trade unions, which allow themselves to be led by men sold to, or at least paid by, the bourgeoisie. In a letter to Kautsky, dated September 12th, 1882, Engels wrote, "You ask me what the English workers think about colonial policy? Well, exactly the same as they think about politics in general. There is no workers' party here. There are only conservatives and liberal radicals. And the workers merrily share the feasts of England's monopoly of the colonies in the world market." Engels expressed similar ideas in his his preface to the second edition of The Condition of the Working Class of England, which appeared in 1892. So yeah, we've kind of this is the creation of the labour aristocracy, and I found it very funny that the denialists of the labour aristocracy kind of like these pat socks, these people who claim to be Marxist-Leninists, who have denied the theory, apparently have not, I can only assume they haven't read literally Imperialism, literally one of Lenin's most important works, because it's right there. It's a very important part. It's the Parasitism and Decay of Capitalism. This chapter, I think it's 9. Yeah, chapter 9. A very good chapter to understand that. There's also commenting on how under imperialism, the industrial state kind of becomes a rentier state, and the world, this kind of paradigm of the financial oligarchy of the world. These the small handful of countries petitioning up and controlling the entire world. I just really lost my train of thought there. Wait a minute. Did I just completely forget what I was saying? I completely forgot what I was saying. Oh my goodness. My brain is just... Bah. Yeah, sounds... essentially. I was making a salient point and I completely forgot what I was saying. I don't know how that happened. It's more than usual. I have completely forgotten what I was talking about midway through saying it. That's just incredible. Amazing. Sorry about that. But, alright, maybe I'll remember later. So let's, I'm gonna I'm still working on the course documentary on the Labour Party and its history. For the few, not the many, People's History of the Labour Party. I don't know when it's going to be out, but I'm still working on that. Don't worry. And this is very important here, this section, because it's kind of completely explains how the think what we're told, for instance, in like A-level politics, old Labour about being this bastion of socialism. The origins of like all the old Labour Party, the Independent Labour Party. I believe it was formed around this time, if I remember correctly. And you had the Fabians and Liberals, from which they drew their ideology from, and they were all very much behind this imperialist policy, and the Labour Party could certainly be said to be a bastion of this idea of wanting to get colonies to feed the surplus population, which is something that's literally said in Hitler's 25-point program of NSDAP, the Nazi Party, that they want colonies to feed the surplus population of Germany. So you see there this very strong tie between Social Democrats and fascists. Of course, they're not the same thing, but they are. But there's like this a same reactionary milieu, and it kind of ties together like the kind of this like social fascism, this kind of all these different non-socialist, pro-capitalist ideas are kind of facets of a similar reactionism, a similar desire to just continue having capitalism chug along as it is. So that's it's a very important connection to make, and it's honestly, with this book being written all the way back in 1916, it's very interesting the level of insight available here. There's also a lot of critique of good old bad old Karl Kautsky. Yeah, can't have a Lenin book about that. Oh, here's what I found interesting as well. There's some quotes by Thomas Hobson in here. And basically, it's kind of him and Lenin here basically predicting the EU, which I find very interesting. Okay, here we go. So this is just a quote from economist Thomas Hobson, which is in the book. The greater parts of Western Europe might then assume the appearance and character already exhibited by tracts of country in the south of England, in the Riviera, and in the tourist-ridden or residential parts of Italy and Switzerland, little clusters of wealthy aristocrats drawing dividends and pensions from the Far East, with a somewhat larger group of professional retainers and tradesmen, and a large body of personal servants and workers in the transport trade in the final stages of production of the more perishable goods. All the main arterial industries would have disappeared. So we've kind of got this thing about how like production in the imperial countries is kind of like the end point of production, and we have like main body production happening elsewhere. All the main arterial industries will have disappeared. The staple foods and manufacturing flowing in as tribute from Asia and Africa. There's it again. Imperialism is that it. No, I'll bloody skip the page. Hang on. This is one here. We have foreshadowed the possibility of even a larger alliance of Western states, a European federation of great powers which, so far from forwarding the cause of world civilization, might introduce the gigantic peril of a Western parasitism, a group of advanced industrial nations whose upper classes drew vast tribute from Asia and Africa, with which they supported great tame masses of retainers, no longer engaged in the staple industries of agriculture and manufacture, but kept in the performance of a personal or minor industrial services under the control of a new financial aristocracy. And Going back to Lenin here, Hobson is quite right. Unless the forces of imperialism are counteracted, they will lead precisely to what he has described. He correctly appraises the significance of a United States of Europe in the present conditions of imperialism. He should have added, however, that even within the working class movement, the opportunists, who are for the moment predominant in most countries, are working systematically and undeviatingly in this very direction. Imperialism, which means the partition of the world, and the exploitation of other countries besides China, which means high monopoly profits for a handful of very rich countries, creates the economic possibility of corrupting the upper strata of the proletariat, I've already mentioned that, and thereby fosters, gives form to, and strengthens opportunism. However, we must not lose sight of the forces which counteract imperialism in general, and the opportunism in particular, which naturally the social liberal Hobson is unable to perceive. Roasting there on Lenin. With Lenin. Actually, he's a firebrand. He continues. The German opportunist, Gerard Hildebrand, who was expelled from the party for defending imperialism and who would today make a leader of the so-called Social Democratic Party of Germany, serves as a good supplement to Hobson by his advocacy of a United States of Western Europe, without Russia, for the purpose of joint action against Africa, against the great Islamic movement, for the upkeep of a powerful army and navy against a I don't know how it's pronounced, Sino-Japanese coalition, etc. So there we have NATO being predicted. So we have EU and NATO kind of being slightly predicted in here. This kind of joining together of Europe into a single bloc, and this is of. These are exactly the purposes of these blocks. It's exactly the purpose of NATO. It's exactly the purpose of EU. It is, they are for the purposes of basically doing imperialism more efficiently, forming blocks with which they hold an oligopoly, a financial oligopoly over the world. And so, yeah, I think that's very interesting how that's brought up there. We do kind of have a like you call it. It's just as Lenin predicted. We have a united Europe, and we have a kind of a military bloc without Russia. That is basically for the purposes of keeping down revolution and pursuing furthering imperialism and continuing the petitioning and repetitioning of the world. Because now we're in this a kind of neo-colonial phase of imperialism now, where we kind of have these colonies becoming independent. But they're still being dependent on these other countries, these great powers. And we also have countries that have managed to completely sever themselves as well, who've broke away from the bloc kind of these main great powers, for instance Cuba. But for instance, would be a very good example of a country that has broken away from this Germany who's no longer being colonized. Now, there are a number of countries that Cuba is still economically somewhat dependent on, but they are definitely not dependent on the Western bloc great powers, because they are kind of receiving pushback from them because of their separation from them. And this goes for a number of other countries as well. I wouldn't say. I think Cuba's achieved more. Is autarky the word? I think autarky is the word. More self-sufficiency than they have had historically. They had, I believe, following the fall of the Soviet Union. I'll never say them it's fuzzy. There certainly have been periods where Cuba, for instance, has needed to take some radical policy to kind of, because they have been completely alone at many points, and they have weathered it. There's average Cuba W. All we're hanging about. Yeah, so that is, I think that's most of what I wanted to say, actually. There's a funny bit here somewhere. Hold on, that's it. There's a witty Lenin. There's a Lenin doing a witty remark. Let me find it. Here it is. Here it is. So he quotes this guy called Kessner, and the quote goes like, "Even in the purely economic sphere, a certain change is taking place from commercial activity in the old sense of the world towards organizational speculative activity. The greatest success no longer goes to the merchant whose technical and commercial experience enables him best of all to understand the needs of the buyer, and who is able to discover and effectively awake a latent demand. It goes to the speculative genius." And you've got Lenin just adding a little question mark, an exclamation mark, and a little in brackets there. Oh, I love Lenin. "Who knows how to estimate or even only to sense in advance the organizational development and the possibilities of connection between individual enterprise and the banks." And Lenin just fucking, after that, he just says, translates it into ordinary human language. There's such the sass on this man. I love Lenin as an author. He's probably my favourite socialist author, but then again, I've not read all of them. Currently my favourite, though. Engels is up there. Marx is quite difficult at times. Kropotkin actually has a very nice way about writing, to be honest. Even if I disagree with a lot of what he says. What was I looking for? Yeah, that's okay. So basically, concluding what we're talking about here, go read Imperialism, of course, but if we want just a quick summary of what imperialism is, it is the monopoly stage of capitalism. It's where basically banking and industry have grown into such big monopolies that they have established a financial oligarchy in their home country, and then they have basically all these great powers, these great financial oligarchical powers, have basically divided up the world between themselves, and kind of formed their own blocks, and we now have a kind of an upper strata of the proletariat which risks being corrupted, this labour aristocracy in these imperial countries, and we also have an imperial periphery, the greater mass of the proletariat, who is receiving an even greater level of oppression in this world divided amongst a small handful of powers. This oligopoly in the world, indeed monopoly here, has become a fact, and this is what these wars are for. They're for finance capital. They're for the exporting of capital, as a distinct thing from the export of commodities, and they are for the constant redivision and repetition of the world. They are to continue the monopolist profits and continue the course of capitalism. That is what these wars are for. That is essentially the essence. That is where we have this constant pointless death, this constant pointless destruction of entire nations, this colonization, this tearing down of everything generations of people have built, and this complete control over vast swaths of the world by a small handful of powers. So yeah, since this is the Remembrance Day, where we are made to remember and think of martyrs, people who have gone into other countries and butchered and committed war crimes and invaded and killed and and slaughtered and destroyed, all for the purposes of seeing a line go up for financial oligarchy to see bigger and bigger profits. I would like to read, just to finish us off, with one of my favourite poems. I do like poetry a lot. Poetry. This is one of my favourite ones. You've probably heard a lot even on the 11th, and I think they're doing ceremonies for it on Sunday as well. You've probably heard a lot of, like in Flanders Fields, that poem. This commemoration of soldiers who died in pointless wars as martyrs, soldiers who went to just slaughter and kill just other poor nations for the sake of like you'll see as where I am, like on all the lamppost poppies, which are essentially a symbol of remember our dead, think of our losses, but don't think of stopping war at all. Just think of our people as a distinct and better group than those of the ones we are colonizing. This day that far from honouring any dead, it clamours for more blood. It clamours indeed for blood all over the world. I like to read this short poem by Wilfred Owen. Just to finish off here. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through the sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep, many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot, all went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. Gas, gas, quick boys, an ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time, but someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime, dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him drowning. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunged at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face like a devil sick of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. This has been Labour Media, and remember, Labour conquers all.